It's a story we rarely hear about, and when we do, it's often accompanied by jokes and teasing. A man physically abused by his wife. Avery Haynes now with the shame and the pain of intimate partner abuse. Avery.
Well, thank you, Gord. I just want you to think about these numbers for a minute. Canada has a population of about 35 million people. 7%, that's the number of men who say that they have experienced some form of spousal abuse, equals 2.5 million men.
Punches, slaps, humiliation, isolation, the life of a battered spouse. Speaking out takes courage, perhaps even more so when the victim is a man.
There's a lot of shame. As a man, you feel very weak, even though you're physically strong.
6 feet tall, 200 plus pounds. We can't identify this man we'll call Jack because his wife has never been charged.
I had been punched many times, kicked many times, cut up, scratched. She has threatened to kill me.
You were attacked with not just fists and feet, but with weapons, with knives.
Yeah, there were other times. She had stabbed me just under the ribs with a Bic pen.
Jack says it started almost from day one.
The abuse had begun the first week when we returned from our honeymoon. She was driving and she reached over and started hitting me. I pushed the car into park, and when I got in front of the car, I heard the accelerator, and she ran over my legs.
Raced to the ER, his new bride, Jack says, was filled with remorse.
I'm sorry, this will never happen again. When the officer asked me if I would like to press charges, I said no.
At times, over the next 2 decades, Jack tried to get help.
We were involved in the church quite heavily, and I would approach a member of the leadership, then I would explain what has happened. And the responses were, well, man up, be a man, take it like a man. And I did.
Increasingly isolated and depressed, Jack finally starts sharing his secret with a therapist who's so alarmed at the violence, she gives him stark orders.
She said, today you have to get what you can and leave. One of two things will happen if you don't. She will either find a way to turn the tables so that you look like an abuser, or she will kill you.
That was 2 years ago.
You were legitimately scared of this woman.
Yes, and I still have fear. When I did finally make the break, she stalked me. I was constantly looking over my shoulder.
And for good reason.
One time she showed up. I was asleep in the middle of the night and she was standing over me. She wouldn't leave, so I called 911.
Hi, you dialed 911. Is everything okay?
From there, she started yelling, stop hitting me. You're hurting me. I said, I'm not doing anything. Please send an officer here quick. And she pushed me down on the ground and she just started hitting me and punching me. And when I stood up, she kicked me right in the groin.
This time, enough was enough. He tried to get police involved.
I presented myself and my injuries to them. Well, unfortunately, we don't have enough evidence. I challenged him and said, what would you have done if my injuries were on her and you hadn't seen the incident? He said, it's simple. We would have arrested you.
Stories like Jack's are rarely shared, and male abuse victims often feel alone. They're not. This government study finds almost the same number of men as women surveyed said they had been victims of spousal violence in the past 5 years. But police-reported statistics are markedly different, suggesting men don't report or aren't taken seriously by police.
I would say it probably hasn't been the focus of a lot of training, perhaps for police, because there's been so few male victims of intimate partner violence that have come forward. Maybe now as more men are able or willing to come forward, it might change.
I don't know which was worse, the pain or the shame. Man or woman, abuse is abuse is abuse.
Jack is still in therapy for the years of abuse he suffered, but his life is turning around.
I have met somebody who has not only loved me to the full extent that I could comprehend, but we've developed a tremendous friendship. It's brought me so far.
All right, so there is no doubt that women who are victims of spousal abuse are much more likely to be seriously injured or killed than men, but they're also far less likely to be charged if a man does go forward and make a complaint.
And police could help in this issue if they're more attuned to the fact that there are men, just as many men being abused, but they haven't really come forward, and they got to pay attention to the things that are happening.
You know, you Google male violence, victims of violence, and there's nothing. There are no services directly for men. And I think that as more men come forward, as Sheila was mentioning, we will start to see more sensitivity towards the fact that it takes a lot for a man to come forward. We do have a special web extra that's up on our website, the raw interview with the expert Sheila McDonald. It's up now. I'm also on Twitter. I'd love to hear your comments at City Avery.
The Inside Story runs every Tuesday and Thursday on City News. All segments up on our website, citynews.ca.